Imagine a mind so powerful it questioned the very foundations of morality, religion, and existence itself. Enter the world of Friedrich Nietzsche, a philosopher who dared to declare that God is dead and challenged humanity to rise above the ordinary. But what drove this man to the edge of genius and madness? Stay tuned as we unravel the life of one of the most provocative thinkers in history. Friedrich Nietzsche, 1844 to 1900, was a German philosopher, cultural critic, and philologist whose work profoundly influenced Western thought, particularly in the realms of existentialism, postmodernism, and moral philosophy. His ideas on the nature of existence, the critique of religion, and the concept of the Übermensch continue to resonate in contemporary philosophy and beyond. Below is a detailed account of Nietzsche's life, covering his early years, academic career, philosophical developments, relationships, decline, and legacy. Friedrich Wilhelm Nietzsche was born on October 15, 1844, in the small village of Rocken, located in what was then the Prussian province of Saxony. He was named after King Friedrich Wilhelm IV of Prussia, reflecting his family's strong ties to the Prussian state. Nietzsche's father, Karl Ludwig Nietzsche, was a Lutheran pastor, and his mother, Franziska Ehler, came from a family of clergy. Nietzsche also had a younger sister, Elizabeth, who would later play a significant role in shaping his posthumous legacy. Nietzsche's early childhood was marked by tragedy. When he was just 5 years old, his father died from a brain ailment, a loss that deeply affected young Friedrich. A year later, his younger brother, Joseph, also died. These early encounters with death and suffering had a profound impact on Nietzsche, fostering a sense of existential questioning that would later become central to his philosophy. Following the death of his father, Nietzsche's family moved to Naumburg, where he was raised by his mother, sister, and 2 aunts in a strictly religious household. Nietzsche excelled academically and showed an early interest in music and literature, 2 passions that would stay with him throughout his life. In 1858, Nietzsche was awarded a scholarship to attend the prestigious Schulpforta boarding school, known for its rigorous classical education. At Schulpforta, Nietzsche immersed himself in the study of ancient Greek and Roman literature, languages, and philosophy. It was here that he developed a lifelong admiration for the ancient Greeks, particularly the pre-Socratic philosophers. After graduating from Schulpforta in 1864, Nietzsche enrolled at the University of Bonn, initially intending to study theology and philology. However, he soon became disillusioned with theology and focused his studies entirely on classical philology. In 1865, Nietzsche transferred to the University of Leipzig, where he encountered the works of Arthur Schopenhauer, a German philosopher whose pessimistic worldview had a profound influence on Nietzsche. Schopenhauer's philosophy, particularly his concept of the world as will and representation, resonated with Nietzsche's own experiences of suffering and the meaninglessness of life. Another significant influence during this period was Richard Wagner, the German composer. Nietzsche admired Wagner's music and saw in it a revival of the Dionysian spirit of ancient Greek tragedy. The two became close friends, and Wagner's ideas about art, culture, and the German nation would have a lasting impact on Nietzsche's thought, though their relationship would eventually deteriorate. In 1869, at the age of just 24, Nietzsche was appointed to a professorship in classical philology at the University of Basel in Switzerland, an impressive achievement given his youth. Nietzsche's academic career, however, was short-lived due to his deteriorating health, which plagued him throughout his life. During his time at Basel, Nietzsche published his first major work, The Birth of Tragedy, 1872. In this book, Nietzsche argued that Greek tragedy represented a fusion of 2 opposing elements: the Apollonian, symbolizing order and reason, and the Dionysian, symbolizing chaos and instinct. He claimed that modern culture had lost this balance and had become overly rationalistic, a view that was not well received by his academic peers. Despite the mixed reception of The Birth of Tragedy, Nietzsche continued to write and develop his ideas. He published several essays, including On Truth and Lies in a Non-Moral Sense, 1873, in which he questioned the concept of objective truth and argued that what we consider truth is merely a construction of language and society. Nietzsche's relationship with Wagner began to deteriorate in the mid-1870s. Nietzsche grew increasingly critical of Wagner's nationalism and his later works, which Nietzsche felt were overtly Christian and regressive. This break was reflected in Nietzsche's writings, particularly in Human, All Too Human, 1878, a book that marked a departure from his earlier romanticism and a turn toward a more skeptical, scientific approach to philosophy. In this work, Nietzsche began to explore themes that would become central to his later philosophy, such as the rejection of metaphysical and religious explanations of the world and the emphasis on human psychology and culture. In the years that followed, Nietzsche's health continued to decline, forcing him to resign from his position at Basel in 1879. He spent the next several years living in various European cities, including Sorrento, Genoa, and Nice, where he continued to write prolifically despite his physical suffering. During this period, Nietzsche developed his concept of the free spirit, individuals who reject societal norms and traditional values to create their own path in life. This idea was further explored in works like The Dawn, 1881, and The Gay Science, 1882, where Nietzsche also introduced the idea of the eternal recurrence, the notion that life eternally repeats itself, a concept that challenges individuals to live their lives as if they would have to relive them infinitely. In 1883, Nietzsche began work on what is perhaps his most famous and enigmatic book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Written in a poetic, prophetic style, the book tells the story of Zarathustra, a prophet who descends from the mountains to share his wisdom with humanity. In Zarathustra, Nietzsche introduced the concept of the Übermensch, often translated as Overman or Superman, an idealized individual who creates his own values and lives beyond conventional notions of good and evil. The Übermensch embodies Nietzsche's rejection of traditional Christian morality and his call for the creation of new values in a world where God is dead, a metaphorical statement Nietzsche used to describe the decline of religious belief and the rise of secularism in modern society. Thus Spoke Zarathustra was not immediately successful, and its dense, aphoristic style made it difficult for many contemporary readers to understand. However, it would later become one of Nietzsche's most influential works. After Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche entered a period of intense philosophical productivity. He published a series of books that further developed his critique of morality, religion, and contemporary culture. These works include Beyond Good and Evil, 1886, On the Genealogy of Morality, 1887, and The Twilight of the Idols, 1888. In Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche criticized the philosophical tradition for its dogmatic adherence to moral absolutes and instead advocated for a philosophy of the future that would transcend conventional moral dichotomies. On the Genealogy of Morality further explored the origins and development of moral values, arguing that concepts like guilt, duty, and sin were historically constructed to serve the interests of the powerful. Nietzsche also wrote The Antichrist, published posthumously in 1895, a polemic against Christianity, which he saw as a religion of weakness that suppressed the will to power, a central concept in his later philosophy. The will to power, for Nietzsche, was the fundamental driving force of human beings, manifesting in the desire to assert and enhance one's power and influence. In January 1889, while in Turin, Italy, Nietzsche experienced a severe mental breakdown. The exact cause of his collapse remains debated, with theories ranging from syphilis to a genetic disorder. After the breakdown, Nietzsche's mental condition deteriorated rapidly, and he was eventually placed under the care of his mother and later his sister, Elizabeth. Nietzsche spent the last 11 years of his life in a state of profound mental and physical decline. During this period, Elizabeth took control of his literary estate and began editing and publishing his works, often distorting his ideas to fit her own nationalist and anti-Semitic views. This manipulation of Nietzsche's work would later contribute to the appropriation of his philosophy by the Nazi regime, a misinterpretation that has been widely discredited by scholars. Nietzsche died on August 25, 1900, in Weimar, Germany. He was buried in the churchyard of Rocken, his birthplace. Friedrich Nietzsche's ideas have had a profound and lasting impact on a wide range of disciplines, including philosophy, literature, psychology, and political theory. His critique of traditional morality and religion, his exploration of the will to power, and his concept of the Übermensch have influenced existentialist thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, as well as postmodern philosophers such as Michel Foucault and Jacques Derrida. Nietzsche's work has also inspired writers, artists, and musicians, including figures like Thomas Mann, Hermann Hesse, and Richard Strauss. Despite the distortions of his ideas by his sister and later by the Nazi regime, Nietzsche's philosophy remains a vital and challenging body of thought that continues to provoke debate and reflection. Nietzsche's influence extends beyond academia into popular culture, where his ideas about individuality, creativity, and the rejection of societal norms resonate with those who seek to challenge the status quo. His aphoristic style, with its emphasis on provocative and often paradoxical statements, has made him one of the most quoted and misunderstood philosophers of modern times. In the 20th and 21st centuries, Nietzsche's work has been the subject of extensive scholarly interpretation and reinterpretation, with many scholars seeking to recover the true intent and meaning of his philosophy. Despite the challenges of interpreting his dense and often contradictory writings, Nietzsche remains one of the most important and influential philosophers in Western thought. As Nietzsche's life unraveled, so did the conventional wisdom of his time. He shattered the pillars of morality, religion, and truth, leaving behind a legacy of thought that continues to challenge us today. But this is only the beginning. In our next video, we'll dive into the very heart of Nietzsche's most radical ideas, the Übermensch, eternal recurrence, and the will to power. How did these concepts shape the course of modern philosophy? And more importantly, how can they shape your life? Subscribe and join us as we continue this deep exploration into the mind of a genius who refused to accept the world as it is.